Would you watch a show where a billionaire CEO has to go an entire month on their lowest paid employee's salary without access to any other resources than that of the employee? What do you think would happen? 3 months minimum, and I'd watch it. With problem scenarios thrown in. Broken down car, tube strike, dodgy boiler, a sick child, the wheels would come off pretty quickly. Well, with a broken down car, the wheels have already come off. Let's also add in the housing loan bill being overdue, and now they are just a couple of days away from being dragged out of their homes. And after that, you've still got to show up to work and put on a happy face or get 3 different earfuls from your 3 different bosses. This comment reminds me that I only have like 6 more decades until I finally die. This comment reminded me of how excited I'm for my natural retirement. There was this similar themed show in Hong Kong and mainland China years ago. They swapped billionaire with bottom feeders, let the rich do the basic job on the lowest salary to see how far the rich could go by purely their own effort. Nearly all of the billionaire admitted that they could not make anywhere, regardless of how hard they worked. Even working without sleeping and resting could not give you any accumulation to help climb up to the higher level of the society. There was only despair and admission that the divide between the poor and the rich is already a deep valley, and mere personal effort makes little sense. It stirred big debate among the society back then, and I think that was part of the reasons the show got cancelled. There was also another show in China, swapping senior political figures with community level council workers to see how good they could do in each other's posts. The mayors were flooded by the angry mobs who kept asking for more and more benefits that were impossible to fulfill. By the end, had to admit the amount of work at basic community level was too much to achieve anywhere. The show also got cancelled quite soon after a few episodes. What's the show? And are there ways to find it online? The show is called in Cantonese. This out of playlist has all 3 seasons of the show in a single playlist. It is entirely in Cantonese without English subs though. Radio Television Hong Kong, RTHK, the producer of the series, revisited some of the people in the show and did a few follow-up episodes. You can find those here. He's the head of Amazon. Hi, I'm Jeff Bezos. She's a low-level greeter at Walmart. Have a great day. Put them together in the same apartment. Jeff, we are out of toilet paper. Go to Dollar General and grab some. How much can that cost? Like $10,000 a roll? Coming this season to ABC, Perfectly Unbalanced. Starring Elon Musk as the next door neighbor. Ellen, Jeff, have you ever wanted to go to space? Jeff, if I did, the ship would look like my dick and laughter. Just wipe with low denomination bills. Like 20s or something. I wish they had done these shows in the US, say, 10 to 15 years ago. Entertainment media can get away with a little more here, and Undercover Boss was popular enough. I think the audience would be satisfactory to whichever network it landed on. It might have pushed things forward a little bit more. Or not, maybe. What I didn't like about Undercover Boss was it ended in grand gestures for a few select employees. Instead of raising wages or improving employee retention, the boss would like buy a house for the single mother manager who lost her house in a tragic fire, or like give a scholarship to that 19-year-old hard-working employee that attends school full-time also. Undercover Boss is pure fucking dystopian propaganda. Oh, yes, your lives suck, but one of you gets a small one-time lottery win by being the token poor person chosen to get some false heartwarming bullshit, while there's no actual positive change for anyone. Doesn't that feel good, everyone? Your rich rulers learned a lesson about your miserable lives. Barf. I love reality shows, so I'd watch it depending on who produces it. If it's too fake, with too many emotional moments, advertising and people shouting, I'm out. I fucking hate that emotional moment bullshit. Kitchen Nightmares and Bar Rescue used to be great, now I can't even watch them. Same with Undercover Boss. Have you ever watched the OG British Kitchen Nightmares? He goes in, teaches them how to improve their food, teaches them how to manage a business, then does a bit of advertising. Most important, the editing isn't the absolute most obnoxious thing imaginable. Intense music and chop cut swoosh noise chop cut, don't geo away, because after commercials kitchen gets real. Danger. Explosion waiter throws something cooking. Never. More. Emotional woman crying Ramsay. Just cut shot of Ramsay walking out the door while calling someone a donkey, loud noise, knives on screen, fire in background. Our car insurance commercial. It's more than just the money. It's the lack of security these people endure. Not knowing if you'll lose your job tomorrow and having no savings. Being kicked out of your home. An unexpected bill you can't afford, which may lead to increasing debt. Putting these rich people in a poor lifestyle for a month isn't enough. Even if they lost their money and homes, they'll have such a huge network that they'll be back on their feet in the time it takes for us peons to earn enough to eat for a week. They can never truly understand what it's like to be poor or ever face that reality again. So what would happen? It'd be a completely self-serving advert about how now I realize that we need to do more for our employees. The workers get a small vanity bonus, probably give an immigrant worker with limited English a car, pat themselves on the back. Then 2 weeks later, we've all forgotten about the show and they'll go back to their old ways. If you haven't seen it, I'd recommend The Act of Killing. It's a documentary following an elderly man who was once a member of an government-sanctioned anti-communist death squad in Indonesia. Now, the commies are defeated. He's celebrated in his own country. There's a scene where they had him do a mock-up of a torture/execution method he had used. He asked production to hold because he found it traumatic. In a very raw moment, he asks the question, "Is this what my victims were feeling in their last moments?" The producer responds, "No, what your victims were feeling was much worse, because you were able to ask us to stop, and they knew there was no escape." You can see in a couple of seconds it changes the guy's whole worldview. I would imagine a billionaire who has been rich for most or all of their adult life, equally, would have trouble conceiving of the dread of inescapable poverty. You forgot the depressing part, where he is the only one to have any sort of realization like that. The other guys had no such realization, or maybe they had one years ago and didn't care. They'd be fine. The problem with poverty is not usually day-to-day costs. People can adjust to that. It's unexpected expenses that are crippling. It is a mix. Day to day you can realistically only spend 5 to 10 out of pocket that even a minimum wage worker can deal with. But prorate in the monthly costs, and it gets crazy. In my area a 1-bedroom in a bad area is still $1,200 per month, or about $40 a day. Transit for most people will be at least $5, and that is cost of mass transit to and from work. More if you drive, car, insurance, upkeep, gas. Not having a car is not always an option. On 40 hours at $10 an hour, you are bringing in about $1,200 a month. You lose some of that to taxes, but let's be nice and say you get it all. You already cannot afford a studio apartment, so you need a roommate. So you have to hopefully find someone sane, but that is not a given. So basically, on your own, on a full-time minimum wage job, you basically are eating garbage to just not be hungry, living with 2 to 3 roommates with the same problems you have, and will have no ability to save enough to ever make a difference. $500 is huge savings over a whole year for you, and that is not life-changing at all. Yeah, I'm really feeling this here. The average studio here is around $1,200. So I live an hour and a half out of the city and commute 3 to 6 hours a day for slightly above minimum wage. Hardly anyone is hiring locally, that's why it's so much cheaper out here. Couldn't go to school for ages and ages because it was impossible to gather the money for tuition and living expenses while I was treading water. And on top of that there are the physical and mental effects of chronic malnourishment, poor water quality, terrible insulation in -30 weather, and so on. I managed to break the cycle when my province increased minimum wage to 14/hours and instituted free tuition with loans available for living expenses. Literally saved my life. It's not realistic to expect people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. I doubt a month is enough to really feel the effect. And a camera team changes everything. I won't trust doing business with a random nobody, but a guy in suit with a whole production team following him? That's a different story. That's why reality shows are intrinsically just shows. Yep, it would need to be hidden camera and such. Nearly every hidden camera show, probably at least 80-90% of them, are not really hidden camera either. You really think the production team can find such good hiding places, with the right camera angles and lighting, and sometimes even moving cameras, for a dozen plus cameras, that the people being filmed don't notice them? All of those shows are bullshit. They are ultimately entertainment, and any purported truth is twisted to fit that purpose. Sure, they would never do that though, because then they would have to admit that they don't pay a living wage. Nah, all they have to do is stick it out for a month, and then they can say from personal experience that it isn't that bad. Of course, they never have to deal with the effects in the long term. It's kind of like when privileged college students pretend to be homeless by camping out in the quad for a night. And this is where the show throws a curveball. Instead of a month, it's actually 6 months, and they just pretended to make it a month so as to see the CEO's reaction to finding out it's actually 6, and his reaction will give us his/her real thoughts on the matter. This is genius. Their reaction is the real show. The problem would be that, even if it was no problem, the CEO would still be pissed off, because he has more important shit to do probably. Lots of rich people voluntarily go on vacation to third world countries. The catch is, they know they have a way out and an end date. I'd be interested to watch a show where the CEO had to personally be financially responsible for the welfare of 50% of their lowest paid employees for 10 years, and their net growth percentage equaled their bonus every year, with a big bonus if both the company and the employees were profitable at the end. Weird thing is, they would be profitable. What I linked is about a millionaire in Orlando. Here is a quick part of it. It is an interesting read, and it would be interesting if others would help scale it up. Orlando, Flap. 2 decades ago, Harris Rosen, who grew up poor on the Lower East Side of Manhattan and became wealthy in the Florida hotel business, decided to shepherd part of his fortune into a troubled community with the melodious sounding name of Tangelo Park. A quick snap from the city's tourist engine. This neighborhood of small once charming houses seemed a world away from theme park pleasures as its leaders tried to beat back drugs, crime, and too many shuttered homes. Nearly half its students had dropped out of school. 21 years later, with an infusion of $11 million of Mr. Rosen's money so far, Tangelo Park is a striking success story. Nearly all its seniors graduate from high school, and most go on to college on full scholarships Mr. Rosen has financed. Young children head for kindergarten primed for learning, or already reading, because of the free daycare centers and a pre-kindergarten program Mr. Rosen provides. Property values have climbed. Houses and lawns, with few exceptions, are welcoming. Crime has plummeted. This is the film I want to see. Sort of like a Schindler's List about the casualties of unregulated capitalism. Explore their limitations and possible winning scenarios.